Commission, implementing an operations committee and a special meeting of the board of directors. And with that, Mr. General Manager, have a determination of form.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Harold Williams.
Here.
Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a forum.
Okay. Next item up is public comments. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting has been held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on a public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. Mr. Chairman, I do not see a request for public comment.
This presentation, we have a presentation by David Engineering, so Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just as a brief introduction, I did want to mention that as part of our look at potentially releasing our RFP on the operations of our water recycling facilities, the president of the West Basin Board of Directors has invited those requesting meetings with members of the Board of Directors with an opportunity to present at committee and board meetings. And with that, we do have Jacobs here today to present for the Board of Directors. I believe that his name is Rich Nagel here to lead this off. But we also have John Rickerman, Alyssa Sunshine Smith, as well as Steve Carpenter. So with that, I'll hand it over to the Jacobs team.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Well, good evening, directors and staff and other members of the public. Wanted just to start by thanking for the invitation to present before you. I do want to give a little bit a background of how we ended up here. It was actually Director Alvarez and I had lunch a few weeks ago, and him and I get together maybe every 6 months or so, and it's a long laundry list. We talk about met items, a lot about direct potable reuse, research gaps, and many other items. And then I had on the list the operation and maintenance contract, and we got down to that towards the end of the discussion. And he said, "Hey, Rich, time out. I'd love to chat with you, but I have a prohibition, and I think the board's intention is to not talk about this individually, but rather in front of the entire board." I said, "That's fantastic. I'd much rather do that." We never had any intentions actually of meeting with individual board members, and I love the chance to have a dialogue with the entire board. Now, I will also say at the end of the lunch, Mr. Alvarez did pay for his lunch. Now, he fell a little bit short. He didn't pick Nagel's up, so I was a little bit disappointed he didn't pick mine up. But other than that, it was a fantastic lunch. The next day, as you know, we had a minor procedure, and I know he's doing well with that, and wish him the very, very best. I'd like to say that I'd like to start with introducing our team that we have here. And I want to impart to you that each team member that you will see here will be an absolute integral part going forward for the contract operations. And of course, we have a much larger team behind the ones that you'll meet today, and these are very critical. So I'd like to start with our team and Sunshine Smith first. That's Sunshine there. She's here, and raise your hand. She has 16 years with Jacobs. She has a grade T3 and a grade D2 engineering background. She's an avid skydiver, and I'll tell you this much: she definitely has fun, and she's a little crazy in the air, but I guarantee you when she lands on the ground, she's one of the smartest, most pragmatic people you'll meet. Next up is John Rickerman. John's over here. John is a vice president of our business group. What you're going to hear from John, particularly, I'd like you to really pay attention because I know cost efficiency is extremely important. John is the leader in our company of our digital tools, and we absolutely have those because we have to do this for ourselves to save money for ourselves and our client. And he's also an avid race car driver, an avid racer, I should say. And so John really does know when to go fast and when to slow down and when to stop. Our third member with us is Steve Carpenter. Steve. So Steve is kind of our guru, Swiss Army knife person that will be deployed here in the transition phase. He's a licensed water operator for 26 years, been with CH2 and Jacobs now for 14 years. He's an avid dog lover, and I'll tell you this much, he will absolutely bring puppy love to your facilities when we're deployed. So start with about who is Jacobs? So Jacobs, as Director Alvarez mentioned, is a large engineering firm with a very, very significant operations branch, and that's fairly unique. In fact, we're the largest combined engineering and operations firm in the country and maybe the world. And you can see here, here's the sites that we currently service, over 300 operation sites. We have over 3,000 staff. And if you look at California, more importantly, you can see all the work we have in California. We have 200 staff, 40 projects, and 500 engineers. And so we'll be deploying all this experience towards you. And now I'd like to turn it over to Sunshine Smith. Yeah, try to fill more. Yes, of course. You know this. You literally have one-of-a-kind facility in the world. There's no other facility in the world, literally, that creates 5 different qualities of water from one source water. And the truth of the matter is, because of this, you deserve one-of-a-kind service of operations.
Thanks, Rich. So as Jacobs and Rich just talked about, we are a very large engineering firm, which we provide. Obviously operations, as he talked about, maintenance, which includes asset management, preventative maintenance, corrective maintenance. Steve's going to touch on that a little bit more. Our digital tools, we're one of the leaders in that John's going to talk about. We provide training and educational opportunities for all of our staff to make sure that they're always finding that next step and learning more. Community outreach is a really important aspect to us. We like to do tours of our facilities. Like this weekend, we have a golf tournament happening at our Gilroy facility. So we always like to involve the community, teach them where their water is being treated or where their drinking water is coming from. And then, as Rich kind of touched on, engineering support, that's one of my specialties. I've been on the engineering consulting side for 17 years. And so I've been able to meet all of our staff, build those relationships with our design teams, our consultants, and then we like to go into our facilities and then assess and evaluate how that site specifically needs those engineering services. So a couple of examples that we have where we bring in all of these capabilities. Our Twin Oaks facility down in San Marcos. I just came from up there or from down there. We started our partnership with them almost 20 years ago. We've been operating since 2008. They have one of the world's largest submerged membrane facilities. I think when they were built, it was the world's largest. By now, a couple of others have popped up. We also, as those of you who attended the Water Reuse California conference this week, this was a big topic. The Soquel Creek facility that's going in, Pure Water Soquel. We've been in partnership with them since 2020 as the one-of-a-kind OMAR contract that John talked about.
Yeah. So Soquel Creek's been a really fun project. Like Sunshine, I also started as a consulting engineer for about 10 years before I saw the light or went to the dark side, take a pick, and went over to the operations side. So I've been in the O&M side of the business for 22 years now. So Soquel Creek's been really interesting, as I'm sure you guys heard a lot about. There's something we've discovered, because we also have a design build business in Jacobs, is control systems are very important when you're starting up an advanced system. So we've actually gone ahead and are building, it's almost done, a digital twin for this facility, which basically mimics the control system and the hydraulics. And to Sunshine's point, this helps with operator training when we take over, but it also helps us find where there may be gaps that we want to know about before we start up. So just an example of some of the digital tools we're bringing to this really fun project. We have a lot of other digital tools that we're working on. And the point I want to make about what we're doing with our digital tools. It's not business as usual. We've all been doing IT. We've all got laptops in front of us, right? We've been doing this for decades. We've all got OT, or the industrial control side, SCADA, PLC. We've been doing that for decades. Cybersecurity, fortunately, that's kind of picking up steam and we're starting to do more of that. But that's the traditional digital stuff we all have to do. That's sort of the foundation for any plant these days. What we're doing with digital transformation is using all that data we've been collecting for decades and really leveraging that to do something different. Let me show you some examples. We have brand names for all of this. I'm not going to go into that, but a lot of this is using that data to do predictive optimization. This is not traditional, after the flow's gone by, you do a feedback loop from some instrument. This is knowing what's going to happen before it happens and making the adjustment. That saves you more than you can with a feedback, just fundamentally out of principle. We use similar concepts when we're managing sewers. This is the eyes on the system concept of seeing where the blockage could be happening before it happens and preventing those SSOs. This is a program we're doing from LA County SAN right now. I already mentioned the digital twin thing. We're also doing quite a bit of this with maintenance management. This has always been a sore spot at our project sites. Maintenance management is actually really hard to do effectively. So we've come up with systems, including AI, real AI, not marketing AI, it's true AI, to help us do our maintenance management more effectively. Show you some really quick examples here. I like to talk about this, and I make an analogy. This is the way we're doing this. It's like driving directions on your smartphone. You type in on your GPS where you want to go, and your smartphone is accessing, well, it's accessing, Waze or Google Maps or whatever. What's that accessing? It's got all the geography, it's got all the mapping, it's got the traffic reports, it's got the police reports, it's got the weather reports, has the traffic patterns. It's got all of that information available to it, and it's pushing to you a recommendation of your best route to get where you're going in the least time, save money. We are doing the same thing with our O&M staff. We have all this information we've been collecting for decades that I was talking about, and we're leveraging that and providing a recommendation to our O&M staff. Now, they're still the licensed operators, just like you're still the licensed driver when you're driving with your smartphone, right? If it tells you to get off at an exit and you want to take the scenic route, that's your option. The same with our O&M staff. We make a recommendation based on all the data we've got. Predictably, they're still the licensed operator. They make the call. I'm a licensed operator. I want that capability. I trust my O&M staff. They know an awful lot. I want them to have the final call. So that's how we're doing this. Key example of this, because I know you use quite a bit of sodium hypo at your plants. This is one of the larger plants we operate. It's 168 MGD wastewater plant. And we implemented this strategy of using our data science tools on this platform. And we're partnered with a huge data management firm, Palantir, California. They've started here in California. They're just as big as Jacobs. It's a partnership. It's not an acquisition or anything. So we leverage Palantir's capabilities. We use our data science, and that allows us to push recommendations to our staff on the right dosage to make while maintaining perfect compliance. That's created a huge savings, over $300,000 a year in savings, and the adoption by our staff, this is just a tracking thing we do for how often they adopt what's been pushed to them as a recommendation. It's fantastic. It's solving a problem they had. So this is really helping our staff be more effective, more efficient. Another example is where we're using our AI tools and our machine learning tools to support maintenance management. This one's hard to read on the screen, I'm afraid, but this one is an AI tool, large language model tool, that just looks at your ecosystem, just your vendor manuals, your drawings, your specs. It's not going to hallucinate on the internet. And you can ask it all kinds of interesting questions, like what are the top 5 most difficult repair jobs based on comments by our mechanics in their comment notes? Who's got time to read 50,000 comments from the mechanics over the past 20 years. This can do that. You know, what safety procedures should I look for when I'm doing this job? It'll pull it up for you, and to build trust, tell you where it got the information from, which page it got it from. So some of the capabilities we're bringing when we work on projects now as an O&M provider, really using the cutting edge digital tools to help our staff. You know, and maintenance is a big deal, especially when we're taking over some new projects. Steve's got a great example I want him to talk about where we took over a project that was really suffering.
Thanks, John. Just want to start off with the disclaimer that none of us knew what Rich was going to say when he introduced himself. So thanks for suffering through that along with the rest of us. So like Rich mentioned, I manage our regional technical resources within Jacobs. I have about 100 professionals that report up to me that specialize in asset management, going in, helping the local staff set up an AM program, ongoing training. I have a regional maintenance team that comes in, supports the local maintenance team. They bring in specialized skills, specialized tools. They're the backup when the job may be a little bit bigger than the local team can handle. My West Coast team is actually managed out of the LA area, so very local here. Also have process experts, operations experts, compliance and reporting. So all those folks roll up to me. But in my spare time, I also get to support new project transitions. My specialty seems to be some of the more challenging ones. My most recent one was what I call the transition of all transitions, a little place called Jackson, Mississippi, that some of you may have seen in the news. Me and two of my team members were the first 3 people on site the Monday after Thanksgiving in 2022 to help with resolving the water crisis. And a little background information, you know, years of system-wide water outages that affected the community. EPA stepped in and basically put the water utility in the hands of a third-party manager. That organization is now called Jackson Water, led up by Ted Hennepin. Ted did his research. He chose Jacobs as his partner because of our expertise and track record. And a big piece of it was our in-house engineering support that can support the O&M side. So I was the first person on site, and the way I describe it, my analogy is, you know, we parachuted into a crashing plane and we had to fly it and fix it all at the same time. Very challenging, very difficult project. We were fighting technical issues, mechanical issues, cultural issues, everything you've seen all happening at the same time. See this slide, just jump to the conclusion. Basically, Ted threw me the keys January 4th, 2023. We were in the middle of a system-wide outage since Christmas Eve. We got water back to the system on January 6th. We took over full operations February 20th, and we have not had a system-wide outage since then. So a very successful transition, very proud of our team there. What does that mean to you? So, you know, you have a very complex facility here. And when choosing an O&M partner, transition is a key part of your new partnership. And everything from that point on just builds. So you need a very strong, very successful transition phase. And you need someone who's battle tested and brings the experience to address the technical and the cultural issues as we go along. And, you know, with Jacobs as your partner, you're going to get me. I'll be the person on site. You have direct access to all the regional technical support as well. Next slide here. So one of the big challenges in Jackson was the actual staffing levels. We onboarded 22 people when we took over, and we estimated we needed about 60 to successfully deliver 2 large treatment plants. So we had a big gap, and our goal was to hire all local. Within 3 months, we were up to 56 FTEs, and we did that through local partnerships, intern programs with Jackson State, with Hines Community College. I'll be going to speak to Hines Community College next month to excite a new class of students, and got to convince them to be water treatment plant operators. So this is a critical part of our delivery system. You know, everyone's struggling with finding good quality people. So our theory is we bring them into our culture, we grow our own. Next slide. Speaking to our culture, you know, we don't own assets. People are what we invest in. And safety is integral to that. You know, our goal is to send everyone home at the end of the day with a little more money in their pocket and at least as healthy, if not better, at the end of the day. So safety is paramount for us. You can see by our results, when you compare us to the industry, on average, we're at least 60% better. Training and education. This is another cultural thing for us. I'm one person. I can't be everywhere. I can't see everything, and I can't address everything. So this is personal to me. I need my team to be just as educated, if not more, than I am. If they're successful, I'm successful. And this is a core value for us, is, you know, ongoing training, ongoing investment into our staff. I believe this is my last slide here. Part of our core delivery model is partnering with our clients and understanding what your needs are for communication. What do you need to see? What are critical metrics for you? Like I said, this is a core part of our process, core part of our business, and we take this very seriously up front to make sure we understand what your needs are and we exceed those. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Rich.
Kind of a lame closer, so bear with me here. So yeah, these are easy things to say. Obviously, you want high value and the best price, right? And okay, so how would we actually deliver that? You heard from our team. So the way, it's not just we're going to low bid or that's one tactic someone could use, but really what we are saying to you is we have regional maintenance teams, we have regional asset management teams, we have regional engineering support that will be brought in as needed, not sitting there paid all the time and they may not have work. That's one way to absolutely reduce costs. In addition, you heard from John, absolutely, we have 47 use cases right now on those digital tools, and we're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. And it really what it's down to, like you have chemical doses, sodium hypochlorite, you spend, I'm guessing, $2 to $3 million a year. We absolutely think we can save you 10 to 20% minimum off the top just by using, in fact, we've done it in multiple instances, just by using those digital tools that John mentioned that pushes that recommendation to the field operator that says, set this dose point here. You've done it before. It's worked before. You may not remember it, but if you set this point, you're going to save X dose of chemical. So that's how we do it, is we bring our expertise and the right amount of resources at the right time. The combination of those things are high value that reduces your cost. This is not just about a cheap or low bid. This is about the value that's brought that enhances the facility itself, but reduces the cost overall. And then our final approach, really, here's what will happen is our transition team comes in. We will absolutely be very focused on retaining as many staff as we can, if not all of them. So that's I want that out there publicly. And then what we have is we have local leadership that will be here, housed here by the facility itself. And you can call Nagel anytime if you want to, if there's some complaint. But more importantly, from the get-go, what we're going to do, we'll do a 360 analysis with leadership with your team. And within that 360 analysis, off the start, we will develop communication protocol that works for staff, the executive management, and the board. And we will stick to that communication protocol so you know at all times where things are at, and really, frankly, to avoid any surprises. And if there are surprises, we will have mitigation plans. Wanted to thank you for this time. I'm hoping I can get one question from the board, possibly. Maybe my suit looks okay or something like that. But we really much appreciate this time. Thank you, Director Alvarez, for inviting us and the entire board. Appreciate that.
Where's your headquarters, national headquarters?
Dallas, Texas. Yes.
I have one here, just Jackson's. Is this Jackson State, Mississippi?
Jackson, Mississippi, the city of Jackson. And that hit the national news about a year and a half ago as Stephen, you could come up here and help, but that was taken over a conservatorship because they were literally not able to deliver. They literally had citizens without water for weeks. And the EPA was brought in to help with that. And they created this separate entity of which then we were hired to come in and be the permanent plant operators. And I challenge you at some point, go ahead and Google Jackson, Mississippi water crisis, and you'll see those articles in the paper. And this was the first responder, literally the first responder. When he got on in January 4th, was handed the keys in 2022, there was 23, there was not water being delivered to that city. And in 2 days, he had that plant up and running. They had 2 plants up and running. And 2 days later, they had the plant up and running. It hasn't had a disruption in the service since then. That is a factual story. Please Google it. Don't take my word for it.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Director Gray, do you have any questions?
I do. I have a comment and maybe a question. First of all, I wanted to thank Mr. Nagel and the rest of the team for coming today and making the presentation. I know Jacobs is a well-respected engineering firm in the industry, so I do appreciate you coming to share with the board, your perspective on what we're doing there and how you could be helpful. I was really interested, I certainly wanted to hear about the cost reduction and the value that we get, but I'm also interested in the culture. I really like what I heard about the culture, what your culture is all about, that you don't look at on an assets, but you look at really people who are part of it. And so you mentioned that you had done some recruitment, I believe you said at a junior college. Was that a junior college, and where was that?
Yeah, I'm going to have. Yeah, thank you, Director Gray, and I hope your stay in Texas is going well. I'm going to have Steve. Yes, we would set those same kind of programs up here locally, and encourage, because we really need to have base staff members coming from this region, if not the service area. Steve?
Yeah, so it was actually a kind of a multi-pronged approach in Jackson, Mississippi. We partnered with Jackson State University, and really the goal there is you're trying to get engineering interns, and that's typically what the focus is when you look at intern programs. But we also partnered with Hines Community College, which is the organization I'm going to speak with again next month. And the focus there is primarily operators, mechanics, INC technicians, the more frontline O&M staff workers. So yeah, the internship programs are a big part of our culture, and honestly a big key to success, because like I said, we're all fighting for the same great people out there in the market when it comes to O&M staff, and it's tough to recruit. So to me, the best option is to grow your own.
Thank you for
Director
that.
Gray,
Did
did that answer your question,
some
Dr. Gray?
Yes, it does. I mean, I, as well as I'm sure the rest of the board, we're interested in diversity and also with recruiting the best, but we're also interested in making sure that we have diversity in the industry, and specifically at West Basin. So, we have a general manager as well as a board that's committed to that. So I'm always interested in learning how we can achieve that. I know it's very tough out there trying to recruit, but I'm always trying to figure out how do we do it, how do we get better at doing it so we can bring the brightest and the best and most diverse people into the industry. But thank you, but I just wanted to share that, and thank you for the response.
And Director Gray, one of the best ways to recruit the demographics that represent the service area is to recruit from those service areas. And that would be our intent, is to make sure the demographics are brought in to the recruitment process itself. And that's very important. And I'm also, again, I'm going to stress one more thing. The most important thing, whoever you choose for your contract operator, culture is going to be number one. It has to be. If it's not central, because without culture, there's no way you can collaborate the way you need to. And if it's not center, I will just say, I think that would be a misstep on your part. I would encourage whoever you do select, culture should be at the front of it. And we really do appreciate this time. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of you folks for a very nice presentation. I don't have any other comments or questions. I appreciate the time and effort that you've given us this afternoon. And if you have any questions of the board, please feel free to ask them.
When are we hired? No, thank you so much. No, we really appreciate it. And how was my blue shirts? I wore purple today. If that was going to be, no, I appreciate it very much. We really do. And this was all you setting this up, Director Alvarez, and I appreciate the invite very much so. Thank you, and I hope to see you all soon.
Okay. So we will move on with the rest of our agenda. And the next item up is the action calendar. We have quite a few items in the action calendar. So let's start. The first one is 5A, amend the agreement for funding design construction of the Salisbury Recycle Water Pipeline Project. Mr. General Manager. Item?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item does begin on packet page 4. And for this presentation, we have Veronica Govea, our engineering supervisor.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the board. Yes, I'm here to present item 5A on your agenda. It starts on page number 4 of your package. And this is a board item to request authorization to allow the general manager to execute the amendment number 1 to the existing agreement among West Basin, Cal-Water, and the Palos Verdes Golf Club for the funding on the Palos Verdes Recycle Water Pipeline, which includes also the pump station. And to give you a quick background, the original agreement was signed in February 2022 and fully executed a few months later in May 2022. And this is basically for the design and construction of the pipeline and as well as the pump station related to the PV extension recycle water system. In the original agreement, Cal-Water agreed to reimburse West Basin for $2.5 million, and the Golf Club agreed to reimburse $500,000 for specifically for the pipeline, the PV project, and $600,000 for on-site retrofits that they need to do within the golf club to get the recycled water running within the golf club. As you might recall, in 2023, when we were bidding the projects for the pipeline and pump station, some of the bids came out a little bit higher, and this triggered West Basin to look up for additional funding. And the golf club has agreed to pay an additional $200,000 to what they have agreed. So this agreement has been reviewed by West Basin staff and among the legal department, as well as its partners, PV Golf Club in Cal-Water. Has been already approved by the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates. And we're here to present this item. And with this, I will read the recommendation, which is on page number 6. So we're still finally getting the final comments from the agencies, but we believe that these comments are very minor. There might not be, any changes that will significantly change the agreement. But with this, I will read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to execute amendment number 1 to the existing agreement by and among West Basin Municipal Water District, California Water Service Company, and Palos Verdes Golf Club for the funding, design, and construction of the Palos Verdes Recycle Water Pipeline Project bearing any significant modifications to the draft provided in attachment. With that, I conclude my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do the board have any questions? Director Williams, start with you.
No, I don't have any questions. I just would like to just say that I'm happy to see the project is coming to a close and that it was done in a way that the folks on the Hill are happy with. Thank you.
Director Gill.
And glad also that we're coming to close on this project. Be a little weary, the whole thing.
Director Gray, do you have any questions or comments?
No, just to re-echo what the two directors said. Thank you.
I have one comment, that's what, so the amendment to the agreement is just for the additional $200,000 for the golf course. Right?
Correct.
That would be nice to have more money. I think I had asked them for a much larger contribution, but I appreciate that they came up with an extra $300,000. Okay, with that, we will move this item, if, concurrence of Director Williams.
I concur.
Okay, next item is item 5B, which is the approval to issue a request for bids for construction services for the fire protection system improvement project. So, Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 172. And for this presentation, we do have Orlando Rodriguez, our acting engineer and supervisor.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the board. As EJ mentioned, please turn to page 172 of the agenda packet for a copy of the staff report. So first, I'd like to start with some background information on where we're at. So ECL is currently equipped with a proprietary fire alarm and suppression system supplied by Johnson Controls, also known as JCI, who have several offices throughout Southern California. West Basin has been working with JCI for several years now for them to provide fire monitoring services as well as maintenance of their proprietary system. As required by the El Segundo Fire Department and the National Fire Protection Association standards, JCI conducts an annual inspection of the fire protection system where they test devices to ensure that they're in working order and also functioning as intended. Since this is a proprietary system, unfortunately, JCI is the only vendor that can provide this or perform this annual fire system inspection. So at the conclusion of the annual inspection, JCI generates a report summarizing the findings of their testing, as well as detailing any deficiencies within the system itself. They also, at the conclusion of the inspection, upload this report to a third-party compliance engine where the fire department is notified of its completion, and also they could view the report to see all of the findings and deficiencies that have been found by JCI. In the most recent annual inspection report that was completed last July, numerous deficiencies were identified and the fire department notified West Basin to correct those deficiencies in a timely manner or potentially face daily fines until those deficiencies are corrected. The fire department also requires that ECL be placed on a 24-hour fire watch, where Veolia staff have to essentially walk the site every 30 minutes to verify that there are, number one, no fires present, and also that no threat of a fire exists. Per staff's prior experiences with JCI, we do understand that there are challenges in correcting those deficiencies. For example, repairs, maintenance, and replacement parts can only be acquired through JCI. So this essentially limits the district's ability to go to aftermarket vendors to get a better price and also to service suppliers as well. It can also take weeks to schedule an appointment with the JCI technician to visit ECL. With that being said, because of that, the staff and the Veolia staff have spent numerous hours in trying to correct those deficiencies internally. And then also JCI have refused to negotiate any of their terms and services. In the monitoring services agreement, although staff and West Basin's legal counsel have concerns regarding JCI's terms and conditions, West Basin reluctantly entered into the agreement out of necessity and also as a safety risk with not having remote monitoring services of the fire protection system. So due to these ongoing struggles, staff made the decision to develop and procure an open source fire protection system that allows for flexibility to use devices from multiple vendors to improve efficiency, response times, and preventative maintenance. The open source system will also lower costs by introducing competition in the form of soliciting bids for those remote monitoring services, as well as any potential R&R work. Because of the compliance and safety nature of the project, staff recommended a single source award to SVA Architects for the development of a construction bid package. SVA was the engineer of record on the ECL Visitor Center renovation project, so they have extensive knowledge of JCI's existing fire protection system. In July of this year, West Basin entered into an agreement with SVA for a not to exceed amount of $38,000 to review all existing documentation of the ECL fire protection system, as well as perform any in-person site visits and assessments, develop and complete a construction bid package, as well as submit for plan check to the city of El Segundo for review and approval for obtaining a permit for the project itself. As of this month, 100% design drawings have been completed, and we are actually getting ready to submit to the city for plan check in the next couple of days. You could actually find a copy of the 100% design drawings as attachment A on page 175 of the agenda packet. In total, we will be replacing 162 devices, and these all range from smoke detectors, heat detectors, pull stations, the fire panel, throughout different locations at ECL. Next steps is that once we complete the plan check and do receive approval from the city to proceed, SVA will be completing a construction bid package. Staff will then issue a request for bids to provide construction services for the project. And then staff will recommend to award the project to the potential low bidder at the conclusion of the solicitation. And before I read the recommendation, I do want to point out that here at the DLD building, we do have a open source kind of fire protection system, which that has resulted in lower costs to the district because we are now able to get kind of parts from multiple vendors throughout the industry. So we don't always have to go to one vendor. And then also we're able to negotiate with the third party vendor, in this case, with Bay Alarms, to provide monitoring services for the fire protection system. And just for reference, because of that, Bay Alarms labor rates are about half of JCI's labor rates or hourly labor rates. So with that, I would like to read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to issue a request for bids for construction services for the fire protection system improvements project, CIP 10130, once the construction bid package is complete. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Director Williams, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Director Deere?
Thank you.
Director Gray? Director
Thank
Gray,
you.
do you have anything?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Gray. One question, if you mentioned it, I didn't hear it. What is the estimated cost of the improvement?
We just received that from SVA, so it's about $290,000 for the overall project, construction.
So. Thank you. With that, if there's no other questions, we, in your concurrence, Director Williams, we'll
Yes.
move this forward.
Correct.
Okay, next up is item 5D. Procure reverse osmosis members. This is the general manager, Superintendent Snack.
Mr. Chairman, I think you jumped over 5C. So
Oh, I did. Let me go back to item 5C, which is the approval to award temporary watering systems pre-rental agreement and issue request for bids for construction services for the solid handling improvement project. Gentlemen, please read this item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item 5C does begin on packet page 209. And for this presentation, we have John Benner, our engineer two.
Thanks, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the board. Today I'll be presenting an action item recommending the pre-rental agreement of a temporary dewatering system, the procurement of electrical breakers, and the posting of a request for bids for construction on the solids handling system improvements project, which is CIP project number 10059. As EJ mentioned, item 5C begins on package page 209. We'll be beginning today with the presentation, which begins on package page 216. Next slide, please. So this slide depicts the intended design schedule. Items in green are completed, those in orange are currently underway. And the final task there is we'll begin once we post a request for bids on the construction project. We've seen this slide a few times now, every time I presented this project, so I won't spend too much time here. There haven't been any changes from last month, but the key date to note here is the intended bid award down the bottom right of this slide is in January of next year. So that's what we're targeting currently to meet the preliminary construction schedule. Slide, please. This slide depicts the overall project schedule, so zooming out from the design phase to the overall project. Another slide we've seen many times before. Changes from last month are in red text here. So we've slightly increased the pre-procurement amount by $100,000. We have decreased the overall construction cost by around $400,000. And I've also updated the estimated project total cost at the top left of the slide to now show what we anticipate the project cost in total from its inception in 2022 through to its estimated completion in 2026. And I'll get to that on a later slide. Next slide, please. So over the next few months, and previously the last couple of months, we will be returning regularly to recommend approval of pre-procurement items for this project. So most of these procurements will be conducted by invitation of quotations, with the remaining components being procured by sole source agreements due to their bespoke nature. These pre-procurements are recommended by the design engineer for components with minimal risk and long lead times that may impact the construction schedule. Procuring these items ourselves also provides an added benefit of saving the district significant expense on profit, overhead, and other margins that a contractor may place on procuring these items. Here you can see the first row is highlighted in green. So the procurement of these steel tanks was approved by the board last month. We're currently in the process of generating the purchase order for those steel tanks. The next two rows are what we're here for today in that green box. I'll expand on each of them in detail in the next couple of slides. The main change here from last month is that we now obviously know the anticipated cost for the rental of the temporary dewatering system as we have the bids. And we now know that the electrical breakers will be under $50,000, although we do not yet have a final quote for those. As you can see, after today, we next anticipate coming before this committee in November and December to request approval for the sole source procurement of some bespoke items for filter presses and for the rental or potentially purchase, if it's cheaper, of a temporary odor control system. That's to help with the odor issues that I'll get onto in a moment, but effectively for the 12-month period that we'll be doing dewatering outside of the building and adjacent to the Topgolf facility, we're going to put in some odor control systems there to prevent impact on neighbors. Next slide, please. So with this staff report, staff are recommending entering into a pre-rental agreement for a temporary dewatering system. This system will be used to temporarily replace the two plate and frame filter presses while they're being refurbished. It's an estimated period of approximately 12 months during construction. As this dewatering is such a critical plant process, we decided to rent two centrifuges for redundancy, so that if one fails, we can cut immediately over to the other centrifuge, and we can continue to remove solids from the system. We're installing this temporary system adjacent to the dewatering building to the northwest, on an open air space there, where the contractor will pour a concrete pad and ready temporary connections for the vendor of the temporary system to tie that in. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is going to be close to the property line from the Topgolf neighbours. So as I mentioned, we'll be procuring additional odor control systems to mitigate any odor issues. And we'll also be operating the system, or our contract operator will be operating the system overnight in the early hours of the morning to reduce any further impact. The rental will be undertaken on a monthly basis after the initial delivery, installation, commissioning, and training. And as I said, it will be operated by our contract operators to allow us that flexibility to operate the system, to remove additional solids, receive additional solids in the influent to ECL, but also to mitigate any odor issues. So this will require us to change some times and frequency at our social. And so next month, the operation staff will be bringing an action item to go out and bid on our solids haulage contract next year to cover this period of time. Obviously, this rental is highly sensitive to the construction schedule. So staff intend to use that monthly rental cost in the construction contract as a basis for potential liquidated damages. So that if there is a delay by the contractor that requires us to extend the rental period, we can recoup any additional costs. The temporary system will be powered through the new electrical breakers, we're also recommended today, and will be fed sludge by the new steel sludge conditioning tanks the board recommended the procurement, or the board approved the procurement of last month. So these three items together form the first few months of the construction schedule, with the temporary system scheduled to be installed on August 20th of next year. So this is why those systems will be selected for pre-procurement, so as not to impact that construction schedule in the early days. Next slide, please. So the engineer's estimate for this temporary system, including installation costs, was $2,067,500. Since that estimate, we have downsized the centrifuges to fit within the available electrical load. So we did expect the final quote to come in below this. However, the final quotes we received were still significantly lower than even that expectation, with the winning bid being provided by Pace DS, based in Alberta, Canada, for a total anticipated cost of $912,118, not including taxes and shipping. This bid includes installation, commissioning, training, and a monthly rental cost of $72,189. It should be noted this bid includes potential penalties of $5,000 per week if the delivery of the system is required earlier than planned. So if construction, we move ahead very quickly and are ready earlier than planned and want to bring those temporary dewatering systems in, Pace DS has stated they'll need an additional $5,000 per week for every earlier week. However, they have committed to maintaining their monthly rental rate of $72,000 per month if there's any extension of that period, so if we go beyond the 12 months. Other vendors that we talked about incurring fines if we did go over that period, but Pace DS are committing to their standard rental cost. Next slide, please. So we also went out for bid last month for 3 electrical breakers, 2 of which will feed the temporary centrifuges, while 1 will feed the temporary odor control system. These breakers will be installed in existing motor control cabinets within the solids handling building, electrical room, and they will need to be installed prior to the temporary dewatering system being installed. So obviously by latest August of next year. Unlike the equipment they're powering, the breakers will not be temporary. This is due to both their low cost and utility for other elements of equipment. So they'll be installed in empty buckets within the MCCs, so they're not impeding any other equipment. We don't have to take anything out to put those in. And they'll also be invaluable if we ever have to use temporary dewatering equipment again, say if there's a Hyperion upset or if there's an issue with that temporary dewatering system, we need to bring in temporary centrifuges again. Or if we decide to install new equipment at or near that building, we'll need to use these breakers. So it's worth keeping. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we went out for bids for these breakers last month. The initial engineer's estimate was $52,000. And as it's above the $50,000 limit, it requires competitive bidding, bring that to the board, or the usual public procurement practices. We received only 1 quote out of those 3 for around $8,000. This quote was actually incorrect and they expected the wrong breakers, but it did cause our design engineer to reach back out to the industry for re-quotes and to assess why the cost was so much lower. It does seem that industry constraints in the last 6 to 8 months on electrical equipment have lessened considerably. And in addition, because we've reduced the electrical load requirements since the estimate by downsizing the centrifuges, the cost, the design engineer now estimates that the new electrical breakers will cost around $20,000. So this is below the usual threshold for board approval, according to West Basin Administrative Code. However, it does form part of this pre-procurement package that staff have repeatedly presented to the board. So we thought it prudent to bring it back in this presentation and include it with the other approvals. So staff will be requesting board approval to take opportunity of the market conditions and purchase these breakers once we do receive final quotes that meet the specs. With an estimated cost of around $20,000. Next slide, please. So I've been over the schedule a few times now, but we're anticipating the 100% design submittal in early October. There are minimal design modifications required from the 90% design, and so we don't anticipate any major design changes. The review period will likely take most of October. We anticipate having a fully prepared set of bid documents in late October, early November. Due to the project complexity and the always busy holiday period, we would like to give the contractors 6 to 8 weeks to prepare their bids, and so we anticipate bids in mid to late December. This leads us to a potential board approval in January 2025, as I mentioned earlier, which matches our anticipated construction schedule. And so if we award the contract in January 2025, we can received a notice to proceed in early March, which meets our preliminary construction schedule and keeps us on schedule for that August 2026 final completion. The engineer's estimate for this construction contract, as of the 90% design submittal, is $14,692,024, including contingency. The 90% estimate was a Class 2 estimate, as per the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering, AACE. So this means that the estimate is considered to have a -15 plus 20% change. Therefore, we can anticipate the construction contract cost to fall between $12,490,000 and $17,630,000, including contingency. As I've mentioned, we don't anticipate any major design changes between now and the 100% submittal, and so we can expect that engineer's estimate to stay approximately the same or be under bid. Due to this tight time frame, the minimal anticipated design changes, and the upcoming holiday period, staff are requesting the board's prior approval to post a request for bids as soon as those bid documents are prepared, instead of coming back to the board in November, which would cause the procurement to fall into the holiday period and potentially extend or delay the construction schedule. So, this slide depicts the anticipated expenditure on the project in each fiscal year. Adding an additional row there at the bottom of this table from last month showing the budget approved for the fiscal year. Obviously, we haven't yet done the budget book for fiscal year 25-26, so I've used the projection from this year's budget. As you can see, the pre-procurement costs have changed to approximately 2.1 million in total. However, due to a reduction in anticipated construction costs, we are currently forecasting the overall project costs will come in approximately $1.5 million less than was anticipated in this year's budget book. So that obviously relates, can't see the packet page there, but it relates to $1.5 million less in West Basin funding required. So, this slide is also 1% every time. It shows the total anticipated and received refinery funding agreements. So there's been no changes here since last month. So I'll move on. I have to come back to it if you have any questions. And that brings me to the recommendations before you. That's on packet page 215. So staff recommends the board authorize the general manager to 1, enter into a pre-rental agreement with Pace DS for the rental of a temporary dewatering system for a period of 12 months for an estimated total of $912,118 with a 10% contingency of $91,212 for a total not to exceed amount of $1,003,330 plus taxes and shipping costs. 2, authorize staff to proceed with the procurement of MCC electrical breakers following West Basin's administrative code requirements for the informal competitive solicitation of goods, professional services and non-professional services. That's Administrative Code Chapter 5-1.103. And 3, issue a request for bids for construction services for the solids handling improvements project once the 100% bid documents have been reviewed and approved by staff. And with that, the presentation is finished. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Yes, to the general manager. Empty project. Sounds like it. Lots going on. How do you feel about this?
I stand firmly behind staff's recommendation on the solids handling improvements project. Staff has been progressing, I think, throughout the past several months as far as maintaining our schedule of events. As John included a slide in there just to show where we are in the calendar. And this, of course, is that next step needed for us to move forward.
Thank you.
Director Beer?
Okay, with it.
Director Gray, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Couple of questions on the, I know you talked a little bit about getting some bids on the electrical breaker. So what's the final cost of that going to be?
The electrical breakers we estimate to be around $20,000.
How much?
$20,000.
And then on the cost estimate for the solids handling improvements themselves. Your estimate, if I understand it correctly, is 14.7 million.
Yes.
But you mentioned a wide range.
Yes.
At this point, we have complete plans and specifications, which you have a pretty good engineer's estimate.
We have 90% drawing, so 90% get a class 2 AAC estimate, 100% will get a class 1, that narrows it down to plus or minus 10%. That's where you normally take the 10%.
So where does the 100% drawing to be available?
First week of October. And then there'll be a review period, and we hope to have them fully ready with their documents by the end.
The other item is the basic construction. Now, the temporary dewatering system is supposed to be in place right prior to the start of construction, or what is the order?
Yeah, so construction will issue NTP according to the construction schedule in early March next year. The first task will be to lay concrete pads for the temporary system and also to replace the 2 steel sludge conditioning tanks. We need all 4 in place for the temporary system. That will occur over the next few months after March. The temporary dewatering system will go in August, according to the current schedule, be commissioned and ready and start operation in September, and it will then run for a 11-month period, this total 12-month rental, through to the next summer. During that period, we'll be effectively stripping the presses down to their frames, taking all the plates off, sending them off for recoating, reconditioning. We'll be replacing all 4 feed pumps downstairs, water pumps, acid pumps, a whole host of electrical sensors, INC equipment. And then the aim is that will be back up and running and recommissioned and ready to pretty much run by the time the temporary dewatering system is taken offline in summer of 2026. We bring the presses back online, get rid of the temporary dewatering system, and then do our final commissioning, training, and close out work and finish by the end of 2026.
So the contractors will be installing the replacement system. Will be as part of his work or their work will be the preparation of the site for the temporary system.
Correct. The contractor will
Site
be,
preparation will be the general contractor, for lack of a better, choice of words. And then when that's done, the temporary dewatering system will be installed.
correct, yeah. So the contractor will prepare the area, bring all of the temporary piping and conduit over to the site. The vendor of the temporary dewatering system will bring the temporary dewatering system on site, and the vendor will be doing the connections and commissioning of that system, and then hand it over to our contract operator team.
And you said that the monthly cost is about 76,000 a month. Then you also mentioned that there's an indicator of liquidated damages. I would like to see that the LDs, or however you want to include it in the specifications and contract document, that if the contractor goes beyond that period of time that the temporary dewatering system is leased, that they're responsible for 100% of the lease payment. And then above that, you still have liquidated damage.
Yes, correct. The 76,000 will form the basis of the liquidated damages. We're also going to be associating liquidated damages with shutdowns because this will affect the rest of the plant. If they extend beyond the shutdown delay, we'll be defining all of that.
But just, maybe I'm going to talk to the district council about this, but I would suggest that you think about not calling the payment of the lease for the temporary facility liquidated damages. It's just that we as an agency are paying for it until August of 26, I guess it is. And then anything beyond that is on the contract. And then liquidated damages becomes a definition.
So I'm not to.
I think it might be cleaner if there's any conflict at the end. That they're very, almost becomes a line item for them. It won't be a line item in the bid, but almost become a line item for them in the event that they go over.
Yeah, I'll talk to our legal representation about that, see what we can do in the contract.
Okay, well, this project has been around for a while. So we will, with Director Williams' concurrence, move this on.
I concur.
And then we will return. to item 5D, which is the procurement of the reverse osmosis member. Gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, as you recall, this item is related to an ongoing dispute between West Basin Municipal Water District and the Chevron refinery in El Segundo. Staff is available for a presentation today. I'm hopeful that our conversations with Chevron will be a little bit more fruitful towards the end of this week. If you'd like, we can bring this item to you at the full board as a potential action item, and we can present it there. Or if you'd like, we can have staff provide the presentation today, which might save time on Monday.
It might be best if we had a brief presentation, but let me ask, is the presentation going to be a 5-minute or 15-minute presentation? If we keep it short, let's have the presentation now, and this is one, sounds like this is one of those items that we may, depending on what happens at the board meeting, defer for another month.
Agreed.
So, let's, at least for the benefit of us today, get an idea of what the item is, and then we can go with the other side of it at the board meeting. Go ahead.
All right, so thank you, Director. So we've been trying to bring this item to the board for a number of months, so I'm happy to present this to the board. This item is related to, as we discussed, the Chevron RO trains, and we provide low pressure boiler feed and high pressure boiler feed water to Chevron refineries. And this RO system consists of 5 RO trains together, 2 first pass RO trains and 3 second pass RO trains. And these RO membranes have been in place or installed since 2020, 2021. So it's been at least 3 to 4 years old. Per the 2020 Chevron agreement, they've agreed to replace or request West Basin to replace these membranes every 3 years. And the reason is that there are 3 sensitive constituents that are very sensitive to their boiler operations. They include hardness, and silica, and iron. And all these constituents, as the water quality has shown the last few months, are approaching, if not already exceeded, the water quality requirements per contract. And so in June, staff had reached out to and issue IFQ to the 2 pre-qualified RO membrane manufacturers. And at the end of June, we received 2 quotes from both Toray and DuPont. DuPont's bid was issued through Water Surplus. And so that's first time that the membrane manufacturer issued through a wholesaler or distributor. And per table 2, Toray membranes is the low bid with a total cost of $763,028. The unit price for the membrane is $432 per membrane. As noted, this is roughly about 12 to 18% increase in compared to the previous larger RO membrane purchase, and that though the previous purchase were made before the COVID, so obviously there have been a lot of change with supply chain issues and chemical pricing increase and whatnot. So staff discussed with the current membrane market with SBI and consider these prices are competitive. So, in accordance to West Basin's strategic goals 1 and 3 to provide reliable drought-tolerant water supply, and our commitment to provide safe and high-quality water by meeting current and anticipating water quality requirements, staff is recommending the board to procure these membranes to allow operations to meet these goals. With that, I'll be glad to read the recommendations. And the recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to procure 1596 reverse osmosis membranes and spare parts from Toray Membrane USA for a total not to exceed amount of $763,028, including shipping and sales tax. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. So do we have any questions, Director Williams?
No questions, just comment. You guys are still fading your reforms. You should be raising it up. You want us to act on it. Okay? That's all I have.
Director Jeter?
Oh.
Director Gray?
No, thank you.
I do have one question. This is just for procurement of the member, and we will install the member separately. What is the lead time on the member?
They're available right now.
Okay, so if you call today, they will be delivered. Thank you. With that, and your concurrence, Director Williams?
You got it.
Move this one forward.
Yes.
Okay. So next is the information calendar, and first item up is status of the agreement with California Water Service Company for funding contributions towards the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant Phase 2 expansion. All right, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do my best to introduce this item, and then, of course, I'll bring in Barkat Masurlian, our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations. This item does begin on packet page 233. And I wanted to bring it to your attention. This is related to the Juanita Melander McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Facility and the current construction there. You can see there in Figure 1, these are the funds that we procured for the project. You can see that we have a little over $8 million from a State Water Resources Control Board Proposition 1 grant that is for a recycled water program. We have the State Water Resources Control Board low interest loan. We did receive some funding from Marathon Refinery. And then, of course, Cal Water Service Company. And you can see that they have pledged $4 million. If I could provide just a little bit of history on that, back in roughly 2013, 2014, Cal Water Service Company offered to partner on this project with West Basin Municipal Water District. Over the course of several years, we talked about how that funding mechanism would be made. No agreement was executed for Cal Water Service Company to provide those funds. Back in 2021, I had a chance to meet with a representative, Mr. Dan Armendariz from Cal Water Service Company. I mentioned to him their promise and some of the agreements that have been provided by Cal Water Service Company to contribute to this project. And Mr. Armendariz gave me his word that Cal Water Service Company would honor their pledge of that $4 million. And of course, when they brought in Ralph Felix, I met with him, and he also said that Cal Water Service Company would stand by their promise to contribute to this project. So that brings us back to the summer of 2023. So last summer, I was awarded the fact that, again, the agreement had not been executed. West Basin staff met with Cal Water Service Company, and we did negotiate in good faith with Cal Water Service. And we came up with an agreement that we all agreed to in principle, including our counterparts at Cal Water Service Company. And that agreement was presented to the West Basin Committee and Board of Directors in August of 2023. And that agreement called for us to identify an asset that we could assign to Cal Water Service Company in exchange for their $4 million to be determined at a later date. And again, I just want to reiterate that Cal Water Service negotiated this in good faith, that Ralph Felix and his attorney agreed to it, and we felt like we had a understanding. However, in the execution of that agreement, once it made it up through the rank and file of Cal Water Service Company, their attorneys and legal had questions about the asset that was to be assigned to Cal Water Service Company. And just last month, I was told that they have rejected that agreement and asked us to expedite our discussions and basically bring back a new agreement. So this is an information item that I've asked staff to prepare. I want to say thank you very much to everybody that did all the work to bring this before you today. Because really what I'm trying to do is iron out these final details with Cal Water Service Company so that we can execute an agreement prior to the notice of completion of the phase 2 expansion at the Juanita Mill Aggregate facility, which I feel fairly confident will happen towards the end of October. And so that's the reason we're bringing this information item to you. Staff is working as quickly as possible to iron out the final details. And we hope to be able to present this on Monday. And so with that, I'm going to throw it over to Barkev to just talk about some of the finer details. I don't want to gloss over anything, but I know that Barkev will have the details in relation to the asset to be assigned.
They're not going back on the $4 million.
I've been assured, and I want to give Ralph Felix a lot of credit. I've been assured by Cal Water Service Company that they have the check. The check is ready to be delivered upon notice of completion. I believe it's 15 days after notice of completion. That they are standing behind their word that was made long ago by people long before them. But we do need to find an asset that we can assign to Cal Water Service Company in exchange for the $4 million.
Paid on the money just on what they're accepting for the money.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and the board. Thank you, EJ, for that summary. I think the only thing I could add to the summary that the general manager provided is talk a little bit about the assets that are in consideration. Ones that we have brought up to water in the last couple of months, and ones that we received favorable responses to. And so I will just point to packet page 239. And on this page, you'll see a map of the facility. It's hard to see on the screen there, but we've actually highlighted several pipelines that we identified as ideal candidates for assets that could be transferred over to Cal Water. These pipelines are potable water pipelines. They're built to be a backup to if we had any interruptions to our recycled water treatment processes. We currently have only one, used to be a temporary pipeline that goes into the MF filtration tank. But with this project, we built pipelines that extend from Cal Water's metering facilities that are located just outside of our property, going into our site and to the 3 tanks, to the MF filter tank, but also into the product water tanks for nitrified water and the boiler treat water. So again, this is a backup potable water system that extends from their existing facilities, from Cal Water's facilities, through our site to our tanks. So we identified these as candidates. Cal Water operates and maintains potable water systems outside of this facility, and the facilities that we are showing that could be converted over to them or transferred over to them entail 20-inch pipelines and 12-inch pipelines that go to the tank. And following this particular page are photos of where those pipelines come out of the ground and go over the tank. We can go to the next page here. What we are proposing is that the assets would be the pipelines going under the ground and all the way to the flow control valve that you see there at the end of the dark pipeline over there. So those are the assets that we've conveyed to Cal Water. So, here are some ideal candidates. The reaction seems favorable. And so right now, as EJ mentioned, we are working out a slight update to the agreement that's attached in attachment A that talks about these assets. And hopefully we'll come back with an updated agreement that identifies all these and puts them in writing. That concludes our update. We're happy to answer any questions.
there any questions from the board? No, Director Deere?
I'm kind of troubled with this idea. We're gonna give up these pipelines. We don't need them. This is strange.
Veronica earlier talked about the PV lateral project. As part of that project, Cal Water contributed $2.5 million. But what they're getting out of that project is a stretch of pipeline and a meter. So it is actually something agreed with Cal Water on that project. This is something very similar where they're contributing $4 million and they're saying it has to go towards some sort of a project, some sort of, a pipeline or an asset that is part of this project. So it's not too different from what we've experienced in the past. And this particular system is not, water's not going to be flowing through the system all the time, only when we need it.
The only thing I would add is that the California Public Utility Commission allows investor-owned utilities to invest in infrastructure like this. However, they're required to incorporate expenses like this into their rate case that they present to the PUC. And if you go back, I think we saw the history of this. Cal Water originally brought this through the PUC years and years ago, and they have since brought it back. And so they have to go through this process, and the PUC requires them to obtain an asset or something for that investment. So they're not just simply giving the money away. In this case, again, I think Cal Water's done the right thing and working with us and is standing behind their commitment to contribute to this project. And this infrastructure would really have no impact on West Basin's ability to serve the requirement.
That answer your question, Director Deere?
Thank you.
Director Gray?
No, thank you. Thank you, Director Chair.
So the only asset that you're gonna be acquiring is basically this on-site pipeline? And prior to that, you weren't acquiring any asset, so they need something, the general manager said.
Prior,
In order to put the 4 million into the rate base, they need to show that they have something.
if you go back to the original discussions, they originally offered the $4 million without an asset. When we revisited this in 2021, their corporate team required an asset. If you look at the agreement that was agreed to in 2023, because of where that project was and the anticipated completion of that project, what we agreed to do was enter into an agreement to identify an asset to be determined later. So we were very much of the understanding that they required an asset back in 2023. It just so happens that their corporate team wanted to know what that asset was.
And with the acquisition of the assets, they're acquiring the maintenance responsibility, even though it's brand new pipe.
That's what we would be pushing for.
All right, I don't have any other questions, so if Director Whitman. Okay, then back in our standard regular report, the monthly operations report.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 243. And we again have our team of experts here for this presentation. It'll be led off by Uzi Daniel, the manager of operations. And then, of course, Jenny Malpe, water quality and environmental compliance supervisor, Susanna Lee, our operations supervisor, and Frank Pukes, our operations supervisor.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, directors. Is that working? I took drama. Thank you very much. We have a presentation if the board would like to see it, but just some real quick highlights. Something I think that's great right now is we had, as the directors are aware, we had an emergency incident, a power outage on Labor Day weekend, lost power, lost flow. And I know we have to often all share in pain together for running operations, but also share in the congratulations and a job well done. Truly, there's a team of people that answered their phones at 2 a.m., a team of people that saw it and answered it earlier. So thank you for that. Some of us that have studied incident command and know how you need to operate it, and I'll say we have some practice now. It really was handled and I hate to use the word flawless, but really was handled well. Edison was our hangup. We did eventually get a hold of them. That's what the issue was. We're following up with them. We were able to notify everyone we needed to. We had the public outreach. Our customers were very thankful of that. And then the bad good part of it was when we finally were coming back online, we had a second emergency event. What was great about that is because we had this incident command structure, we literally each handed off to another person our duties. And so I want to thank all of the board support for that, to our management. It went well. We have someone here who was actually sleeping in their car to make sure while the rest of the crew handled it. So that's just something to say that what we do to make sure that our water keeps flowing, no matter what occurs, even outside our control, is worth celebrating as public servants. So thank you for that. And then some of the regular things that you'll see in the presentation, compliance wise, we have some new inspectors with LA County Sand. We have a lot of things coming up with them. Everyone's very active right now, preparing for the pure water projects. We're also dealing with in compliance, finding some records for regulators. New 8-hour hold time on coliforms has been a real struggle. So we're working on contingency plans, looking if we need to do that in-house. We've been working on that. In addition, we're doing some of the regular R&R, working with engineering to assure that some of the repairs we need, because they have compliance hooked to them. For example, you saw today the fire panel. We have some pressure vessels, even HVAC now with AQMD standards. If some of your air units aren't working right, you can get a violation. So we're working on how we prioritize things, really working as a team. And I think you'll see some of that here. And if you want to see the presentation, if you have time, we can proceed with that.
Anybody have a question? See the presentation?
No.
No.
Any question for the presentation? Okay. So,
Disappointed in them.
Thank you.
we're all done with that report. Okay, then we'll move on to our next report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 282. It's our monthly engineer report. Leading us off, we have Barker Maserlian, our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations. We also have Kevin Cullen, our Engineer 3, Veronica Gobert, our Engineer Supervisor, and John Vanner, our Engineer 2.
If we can go to the packet page, thanks, EJ. You can go to packet page 286 for a breakdown of the presentation. And I can start off with talking a little bit about the look ahead for next committee. We have Kevin here, who is scheduled to talk about one of the projects that we have completed, VFD replacement project successfully. Also, JMM phase 2, Kevin will give an update on that. TV lateral project, Veronica will talk about that, and then John can talk about some of the updates on the DCS. Happy to go through the full presentation, but if you want to pick and choose for one of these topics and we'll talk about those, then we can do that as well.
I will ask the board what their pleasure is.
Well, how about it?
Would you like one?
One.
Or listen to all of them? Yeah.
One good.
One good one? Okay. All right.
Pick the best one.
And Director Gray, are you willing to go along with this bunch down here? Okay, not hearing. I will take that for a yes. So, I would say, why don't we, have a discussion on the DCS improvement plan?
We'll turn it over to John then.
Page.
I'll be on packet page.
I'm off guard. Yeah. Let's close it down. Packet page 313.
Yeah, 313.
Yeah, 313. But if we can go to the next slide, 314, it's a pretty brief update this month. So we had advisor approved in the July board meeting. I'm happy to say that we held our kickoff meeting today, so things are well underway. But it finished 30 minutes before this board meeting. Long kickoff meeting, covered lots of tasks, very productive. In terms of the design build and procurement, we're obviously still ongoing with outreach, meeting consultants out in the field, doing site walks that are all up to speed before we go out for procurement. We've completed the RFP template and we've completed the contract template. The scope of work or performance specifications is currently underway. All three of those documents have been handed over with the owner's advisor now, so it's on them. It's their task to take those through to completion, and they'll be undertaking that over the next months. Our aim is to post the RFP for this in November and conduct procurement over a couple of months after that, and hopefully come back to the board with an award in February. And then this is just a summary of what I just mentioned. So we're aiming to come back February 2025, award the design and build team through fall of 2025. We're hoping to finish off the pre-construction phase, the initial design phase, where we'll get that guaranteed maximum price. We'll have our system selected hopefully in summer 2025, bring that back to the board then. And then by summer 2026, we hope to have the system completed, installed, commissioned, training done, and all ready to go. It's the DCS replacement project update this month.
And if I may add, I know we said we'll talk about one project. If I can add just one more note on one of the other projects on packet page 294. Again, this is a project, a VFD replacement project that we're going to report on its completion today. I just want to point out that this project has come in under budget. And as the table over there shows, there's the design costs, construction management costs, construction costs all together came in at $508,000 under the $714,000 budgeted for the project. In terms of schedule, we were able to complete the project with only 13 days of going over the completion milestone. So just wanted to throw that out there, and kudos to the team that, kudos to the team that worked on the project and got it to completion.
Is there time for one more? Kevin, I believe you have something to report.
I do. Very briefly, I'll just say that as of about 4 p.m., we started the 30-day acceptance test for the phase 2 expansion project. I'll say I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get through it on our first go, but happy to report that we have been running the units during the day for the last month or so. They've been running fairly well, and starting today at 4 o'clock, we started the 30-day test.
Make the general manager's earlier comment that he anticipated that we'll be finished in October.
All goes well on the first track.
Okay, so back to the DCS project. Any questions? Show the timeline for the procurement document being finalized. So when is that going to come back to the board?
Yes, so in November, and it's been coming back to the board with approval to post the RFP with those procurement documents.
Right.
And at that point, we can go through the final points of the contract and all the specifications.
Okay, so in November, we will be able to see those documents.
Yes, that is the aim. They will come back to the board, absolutely. Posted. Hopefully it'll be in November.
I will then keep the rest of my questions till I see the document. Thank you. Okay, with that, we are at the closed session portion of the meeting. I have a closed session today. So the next item is director comments and request for future agenda items. So Director Williams,
No, thank you.
Director Beer,
I heard something once or twice today. It's music to my ears. Came in under budget. Really nice to hear.
That is the first time I think I've heard that here.
Well, stick around.
Director Gray, do you have any, comments? Director Gray? Yeah. If not, I do not have any additional comments, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.